everybody. It's Museum Minds. Oh my gosh, it's the best day. And we're here to come together as our museum community to have some fun, to maybe laugh a little bit, to give you some really awesome content, and to be museum besties, to be friends. It's so good. So, if you're a veteran here, you know the story. But for all the newbies that are here, because we've had so many people sign up lately and our meetings have been so packed lately, it's so great. So, Rainey, do you mind telling everybody about how we started Museum Minds?
I would love to tell that story, and I tell it a little bit differently every time.
Hi.
But the gist of it is Beth and I met in a business mastermind a couple years ago, and I always say that the best value I got out of that mastermind was that I met Beth Hauswirth. So we were the two people who in the cohort that had museum backgrounds, and although we run two independent businesses, we noticed a lot of overlap in what we did and what people were asking us. And we said, you know what? I think we need to create a space where we can share all of the knowledge that we have. We can learn from others. We can bring in guest speakers, which we have one next month, and just talk about all things museums and being the best that we can be in all aspects. So this has been a really fun endeavor. We're about a year in and it has grown enormously, and we've talked about so many subjects, and it seems like sometimes marketing, fundraising topics get a lot of interest. So I'm excited to talk about email today. So
Exactly. And Rainey is your marketing person. She does marketing for the arts and
oh,
making sure that all arts organizations have a really clear and awesome voice. So that's what she does. Let's talk a little bit about what the call is going to look like for all the noobs and a reminder for those that have been here a lot. We take the first couple minutes here just to get everybody briefed. Whew, what to expect when you're here. Just a couple little minutes of intros and housekeeping, all the things. And then we go into about 25 minutes of some sort of learning. Like, we're in a really cool museum world that there's so many facets to learn about. And sometimes we feel like in our museums, we're in a bit of a bubble and we have to go outside to get a little bit more inspiration or hear stories and things like that and learn from others. So that first 25 minutes is the learning side of things. Again, like we said, Rainey's going to talk about email marketing today. We have an intermission that's literally like 1 to 2 minutes so that we can get a drink of water and you could do the same. You could take yourself off of mute or come on camera if you have a question. And then the second half is the really, really fun part. So if you have to leave halfway through, you're missing the best part of the call. But the learning is really good too. We love the second half because it's networking and Q&A, meeting our friends that are on the call and fielding questions from the folks that are attending, as well as kind of like activating the hive mind because we're not always the experts on everything, but I know those experts are here in the room. So a lot of times when people ask questions, we just say, what does everybody else have to say? And usually the chat blows up, people come off of mute, they have really good answers to really have a collaboration. Museum Minds Collaborative. That's why we called it that. So that's what today looks like. We're going to introduce ourselves. Again, I'm Beth Hauswirth, or maybe I didn't say that before. I'm Beth
oh,
Hauswirth, and I run Inspired Impact. I work mostly with emerging museums and new museum professionals to give them a jump start on industry knowledge and just kind of hit the ground running. So I can see already in the list here that I have some clients and museum besties of my own right here in the room. So if you ever want to hear about more that I've done, you can reach out to those people too. I'm happy to chat with you, and I'm sure they are too. And my counterpart, my lovely museum bestie.
well, we're all museum besties,
Yes,
but
we are. You're
Um,
my bestie.
anyway, yeah, so my name is Rainey Robison, and I'm sure a lot of you have been here before. And if you haven't, my business is Neptune Sugar. I work with arts and museum professionals to help them have clarity and confidence in their marketing and hopefully without the overwhelm. Up until this point, I've primarily done one-on-one consulting, and I'll even show you some examples of some clients I've worked with in this very presentation. But I am actually veering toward, and also Beth is doing the same, in addition to consulting, building a whole system of digital courses. So arts professionals and museum professionals can have all the knowledge and toolkits that you need to be successful. So you will be hearing a lot about that in the near future, and I'm really excited about that direction. So more to come on that.
Full show,
Should
full show.
we
All
dive
right.
in?
Well, there we go. That's our quick intro. It's our housekeeping. I always feel like at the beginning of like workshops and things like that that are in person, though, that's the time where you introduce and then tell people where the bathrooms are. But today we don't have to do that. So you know where those places are for yourself. Grab yourself a nice beverage, relax, take in some really good info, and while you're listening, start getting those questions ready. If it comes to your mind, throw it in the chat. We have no problem with you interrupting in the chat during the presentation, because then we know that there's going to be questions ready for the Q&A section. So if it pops in your mind, no need to filter. Throw it in the chat and we'll get it rolling during the Q&A. All right, ready? Are you ready to glow and be amazing? Here she goes.
Here we go. So, and you're going to have to, as Beth mentioned a minute ago, we're having a little bit of Zoom issues in terms of I can't see any of you and I can't see the chat, but I know you're there and I want to ask a question. So, Beth, you're going to shout this out to me. But I really just kind of want to get a sense of how's your email communication and marketing going. So, I want you to literally type in the chat green, yellow, or red. Green being like, I don't even know why I'm here. I'm kind of curious. Yellow, I'm guessing most of people here today are yellow. It's okay, but I'd like to learn more. We had a number of questions in the registration that we'll bring up as we go too. And then red being like, I don't even know what I'm doing. And that's okay. That's why you're here. This will be a pretty broad overview with a lot of tips and tricks that you can take with you. And then we can save some of the meatier questions for the Q&A. But what are you seeing out there, Beth?
Oh my gosh, so many yellows, so many yellows. Okay. And then there's like coming in second is red.
Okay, we have red. Okay,
Valiant, orange selection, and orange. One brave soul. One brave soul said green.
Green. Okay. Well, maybe they can answer questions.
Majority of yellows. Majority of yellows.
That's what I expected, and that's kind of what I expected from the registration. But it's kind of good to know who's in the room and kind of where you're at. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is why the heck email marketing matters. And you're here, so I'm guessing you think it matters. But I kind of want to give you my 2 cents on why I think it's really important and why it's something that you should really focus on and build up your lists and communicate with your audiences. The first thing is it is your list. This list doesn't belong to Zuckerberg or Elon or anybody else. It is yours. It is, people have opted in to hear directly from you. And it's just really nice that you kind of have a certain amount of ownership over that. The other thing that's not going to happen is the algorithm is not going to constantly change on you. Again, it's just you have your list, you maintain your list. We did have a lot of questions about segmentation and things like that, so we can talk about that. But I have noticed, and if you've probably noticed, these social media companies like to move around the furniture a lot and change things constantly. And it can get a little bit daunting and overwhelming to stay relevant and to stay in front of people. And then the last thing is it really is less noisy. Now, that doesn't mean there's not competition in people's email inboxes. There certainly is. And one of the other biggest questions came up, that people worry that they're communicating too much, that they're blowing up people's emails, that they're going to get unsubscribes. But overall, again, these people have opted in to hear from you. And so it's a less noisy way and an easier way to reach them than social media sometimes. And I wanted to bring up this specific example or a couple of quotes that I thought were really interesting. And these are paraphrased, but both Beth and I attended the same webinar where Amy Porterfield was interviewing Seth Godin. And if you don't know who these people are, Amy Porterfield runs the Digital Course Academy. She literally has a podcast called Marketing Made Easy, which is now called the Amy Porterfield Show. She's so famous now. And she was interviewing Seth Godin. And some of you may be more familiar with Seth Godin, who arguably may be one of the biggest marketing influencers and most published authors. I'm thinking of maybe all time. I'd have to actually look into that, but he's a very well known, very well respected figure in the marketing world. And so they both said two really interesting things in this webinar. So Amy Porterfield was comparing social media to like a cocktail party. It's loud, noisy, full of fleeting interactions. It's not that it's not important, but it's a very different type of communication than email. Email is where you can have, it's more like a coffee date. It's more quiet, intimate, personal. You can go into a little bit more detail than you maybe are able to on social media. And I just thought that was a really perfect analogy for that. Seth Godin, on the other hand, was a little more scathing. And again, this is a paraphrase, but he said, I remember him saying something very specific to social medias, companies exist for one reason and one reason alone, and that is to profit off of the content. And if you don't create content that is likable, shareable, interesting, people are interacting with, you're going to fade into the background. And so he's been doing this blog for like 20 years, and he has a newsletter, and he just said, I prefer my blog and email. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing social media, but again, it really reinforces the importance of email. And one way you might think about email is a complement to the other channels that you are reaching people. So there's a concept called 360-degree marketing, and everybody's, I guess, wheel, I guess you could call this, is going to have different spokes, different ways that you are going to be reaching your audiences. And this is a very simplified version. There's a million other ways you could reach your audiences, but it really is going to be a complement to that social media. And you may have heard me say this before, and you're going to hear me say it in almost every Museum Minds talk that we have, but you need to, or people need to hear a message 3 to 5 times before they act. And I have not only noticed this as a marketer, but I have noticed this as a consumer. I can be very reflective on my own behavior and notice what I'm doing. And I have noticed that a lot of times, whether it's a wrinkle cream or it's an art exhibition or something like that, usually it's around the third or fourth time I see it that I start to go, there's something in my brain that starts to register, this must be really important. Or, oh, I've seen this many times. This time I'm going to click through and see what this is all about. So again, the idea being that you need to hit people on multiple channels multiple times, and email is certainly a very important aspect of that. Okay, one of the biggest questions we had in the registration was, how do I capture emails? How do I build a list from scratch? There was, again, questions about segmentation, which we can talk about. I'll talk about a little bit here, but we'll talk about more in the Q&A. But question, how are y'all capturing your emails? How did you start your list? Again, I can't see the chat, so if you can read those to me, Beth. How are you getting them?
How? I'm putting it in the chat too.
Thank
Your
you.
question was, how do you capture emails
Mhm.
for your organization? It's coming. I know it's
There's a
gonna come.
quiet group today.
Everybody's gonna answer. Well, I know that there's also this like lag time with Zoom. Is that like it
That's
lags
okay.
and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, whoa, I can't keep up. Here we go, here we go. Surveys, newsletter signups, membership sign-ins. I got emails from people signing in to our virtual viewing rooms. Free online art shows. Let's see, web pop-ups or sign-up sheets at events. We have newsletter sign-up links, museum memberships, raffle ballots.
Oh.
Make a sign up list on the website or on socials from program registrations, families opting into the newsletter, mostly passive on web page signups,
Mhm.
quizzes, raffles, Event RSVPs, opt-ins when signing up for an event, online store purchases. Oh, Melody, that is so on brand. That's Melody's our museum store person. Newsletter signups on web pages, drop-in classes. Oh my gosh. So many
Wow.
things.
Wow. My list is going to be so small compared to that. But I love hearing from you because there's things on there that I just heard that I hadn't even thought about. But this can be kind of a self check for the basics. Questions to ask yourself. Do I, for instance, and I heard this in the chat, have a pop up window that shows up, maybe 10 seconds into, people perusing your website, sign up for our email newsletter. I'm willing to bet there's a lot of that a lot of you that don't have that. So if you don't have it, get it on there. It's not super hard to do, or get your IT person to put that on there at minimum. Another thing, and I think I heard this too, is events. Are you setting up an Eventbrite or something in your MailChimp or what was the other one I'm going to talk about? MailerLite, some sort of RSVP system. And this can take a number of forms. I'm most familiar with Eventbrite. They have a really great platform. And the beautiful thing is that after the event, you can download the CSV file and upload it into your platform. But I think a lot of organizations don't always ask for RSVPs. Now, is everybody going to RSVP? Absolutely not. Do they have to RSVP? No, but you would be surprised how many people do RSVP and put their email in there if they're asked to. And the other thing is too, is it can really help you get a sense of like, are people actually RSVPing? Do people actually know about this event? Do I need to double down a little bit, put more information in? Or, the other problem to have, like, oh my gosh, I need to get some more catering because we have 600 people coming and we expected 300, so it can be a really good tool for capturing emails. The next one, went too far, is social media. And I think I heard this too. Are you consistently directing people toward your newsletter in social media? Is it in your call to action? Maybe once a month you post a post that reminds people to sign up for the newsletter. Is there something at the front desk? Is there a clipboard with a piece of paper? Is there something they're prompted to do when they pay? Or is there an iPad there that they can sign up on? Same thing with in-person events. Is there some way that they can sign up for that? Or maybe you have a person walking around who has a sign that says, ask me about our newsletter. You can get super creative about how you do this. And the other thing is you could experiment with QR codes. You could have them, just at your drinking fountains or something like that, and test it out for a month to see if this ups your opt-ins or something like that. Like, hey, you want the latest and greatest news? Sign up for our our QR code, our newsletter. I also was reading something last night where there was some sort of like QR code scavenger hunt that one museum did. Or, for instance, maybe there's a downloadable resource that they have, but again, they have to exchange their email to get the resource. Another thing on that note, I wanted to talk about and just kind of have you ask the question to yourself, is there an incentive? Like, is there something I can give them in exchange for their email address? And I think at bare minimum, you're going to want to say something like, whoops, something, it just did all of it. Like, this is the most up-to-date information. Like, you really are going, went backward. It's like lagging or something. Here we go. You're going to want to make sure that you at least communicate that you're going to get the best and most important and most up-to-date information, in exchange for that. But you could also think, and again, this really depends on your museum and what you feel comfortable offering. I don't think you want to be a Wayfair that has a 20% off for every new subscriber or anything like that. But maybe there is some sort of early access. Maybe there's a downloadable guide, some sort of free educational resource. Maybe even for a month, you try out, hey, your next visit is on us. All new subscribers in the month of August can come for free for one visit. The beautiful thing is they're also going to bring a friend. So there will be a paid admission, most likely. And another one I saw, and this looked like from the examples that I read online, that this was really successful for some museums. Again, just giving them a little gift shop or cafe discount, for a new subscriber. And again, it just creates like some sort of reward or some sort of incentive to get them Okay, let's talk about email platforms. And I'm dying to know too. So I am going to ask another chat question. Is anybody BCCing? And if you are, I'm
Hmm.
proud of you for doing something. If you're CCing, I don't think that's such a good idea. For anyone who has kids, they've probably gotten a CC email from a teacher, and then somebody replies all, and then everybody gets that big long list of an email this long. But I'm dying to know if anybody BCCs. I do know organizations that are doing this, and it, I would say, is better
Yes,
than nothing.
it's
Yes.
come up in the chat. Oh, there. Oh, I thought there would be like three. There's like four, five, six,
Five,
seven,
six.
eight,
Okay, so, and I'm not surprised, but again, I want to
nine.
compliment you. I want to compliment you because you're doing something, and something
Yes,
is better than nothing.
valiant effort.
Yeah. Yay. But again, if you're going to do it, do BCC. The problem with this is there are no analytics. You don't know who's opening. You're probably going to have to manually take out any bounce emails. Uh, so many reasons why, if I could get you to move to a dedicated email platform, then you're going to be in so much better shape. So two of the ones that I've used some other ones too, like Constant Contact, and I've tried ConvertKit. I thought it was kind of difficult, but these two are really easy to use. I use both. Beth and I use MailerLite. I've used MailChimp in the past. User friendly, not expensive. If you can get past setting up the core structure of the email, it's really just about updating and resending information. There's a lot of information you can get back about open rates. You can segment audiences. There is a lot you can do here. So if I can get you here, you are in good shape. Now, something that may be considered best, but it may not be the best for everyone, is to go to a full CRM, customer relationship management platform. And there's a lot of these made for nonprofits like Bloomerang, but they are more expensive. They're sort of an all in one fundraising platform. They even have event RSVPs, but there is a sort of learning curve, a lot bigger learning curve than you're going to see with just those dedicated email platforms. So I would only do this if you've mastered this and you really, really are ready for the next thing. But you can do so much in this better category that, again, if I can get you to at least upgrade to that, then I'm going to feel really good, and you should feel good about that
And
decision. Oh,
there's
go
a
ahead.
couple
You want to add something?
comments. There's a couple comments in the chat about people who use MailChimp. So if you're considering MailChimp or Constant Contact, you know, just look at the chat and reach out to those people.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And they all are kind of the same. Like they kind of all have the same sort of building, add a divider, add a photo, add a a text, they're built pretty similarly. I will say MailerLite, I think, is probably the easiest one I have ever used. But again, if you're in any of those other ones, I think you're doing a great job. And like Beth said, connect with each other and say, hey, how are you using it?
And the
Um,
one thing too about MailerLite that I'll just
yeah,
throw in there, Rainey and
sure.
I chose MailerLite to begin with because they have the highest threshold of subscribers on the free plan.
Right.
Have to. So if
That's
you're
true.
a small museum or you're just getting started, that's a nice entry point because of the fact that you can work under a free plan for a good chunk of time until you get enough subscribers that you have to pay.
Yeah. And then I don't know what is $25 a month or something like that. Again, if you go to that next Bloomerang level, you're talking about hundreds of dollars a month, depending on what you're doing. And I've seen an organization switch over, and it was a bit of a headache. Once they were there, it was good. But it may not be for you. Okay, so the next thing is, another thing that came up in the question was, how often am I supposed to be emailing? Am I bothering people too much? And I think the fear is, what if they unsubscribe? And I will say, I'm not saying it's not possible to go overboard with communication, but I just kind of want to put your minds at rest that you're probably not over communicating. You can probably communicate a lot more than you think. And I would really encourage you to become an observer. Go subscribe to some other newsletters of some organizations you respect. Don't copy their content, but pay attention to what they're doing. Do I like how much I'm receiving these emails? How do I feel about the structure that they're doing? So copy their strategy, don't copy their content. But again, overall, I would say you're probably not bothering them too much. So let me give you a few ideas. So then I keep skipping way ahead. It's like every time I push my button, it goes boop, boop. So anyway, here we are on good. So let's just say once per month. If and I think this has everything to do with capacity. There were a lot of comments in the questions or questions in that in our registration saying, how do I not burn out? What do I write? Things like that. So I think it has to do with like, what are you capable of doing? So if you can create at least a pattern that is consistent, start with once a month. If you can get that out, I'm going to applaud you. Okay. If you can get every other week, I'm going to applaud you some more and be like, oh my gosh, good job. That was amazing. If you're communicating every week, I think that is ideal. Again, there is no hard and fast rule. It has everything to do with your capacity, your comfort level, how you feel your audience is responding to this. You're going to really get a sense, I think. But if you're more than once a week, if you're every other day or something like that, yeah, you're probably getting into a territory that's maybe a little uncomfortable, and your unsubscribes might go up a little bit. But there are also fundraising campaigns. I'm going to talk about Giving Tuesday in just a minute. That's a window of time where people are going to get maybe 3 to 5 emails from you in 48 hours or something like that. So there are circumstances that obviously are going to increase that frequency. And I think it's a really good idea to send event reminders. It really doesn't have to be a long email. It could just be like at 3 o'clock on Friday, join us tonight. I love getting reminders. I am so busy. People are so busy. I love getting 1 hour reminders before a webinar. I think people want to get those reminders from you. And then if there's anything you can put in there about like parking or how to make it easier to get there, or some sort of useful information, I think people actually really appreciate it. So hopefully that gives you some guidance, and then you can kind of tweak it from there. How are we doing on time? Oh, am I supposed to be done? Okay, I'll just keep going. We'll have time for Q&A.
I know that there are a couple questions coming up too, so we gotta leave a little bit of time for Q&A.
Okay, we'll do that. So this is the biggest chunk, and then the last two I'm going to kind of cruise through. So again, another thing that came up is messaging. Well, what do I say? And another thing that came up too is how do I avoid burnout? But one thing that I think I specifically remember somebody said in the registration was like, how do I not dread writing emails? Because I think it can be this kind of overwhelming situation. You open up MailerLite, and you're looking at this blank canvas, and you're like, what do I even write? So hopefully these will give you at least some guidance in terms of how to get started. So one thing you're going to want to do for email as well as for your social media is come up with content pillars, or sometimes we call them buckets, and rotate through those topics. And then of course you can add timely information and things like that as well. So let me give you an example. And you can have more buckets than this, but maybe you have 3 to 5 topics that you always rotate through, exhibits, community, education, fundraising, and just keep rotating through those. And that can really be a good self-check to be like, oh, I haven't talked about education in a while. So that at least starts to get you in a pattern of rolling through those topics. And again, I would do that on social media as well. The second thing I would really advise you to do is to lean away from your institutional voice. And I see this all the time, and I've done it myself. And I think it's so easy to get in this pattern of just kind of coming from this. Let me give you an example. We are excited to announce the next exhibition, blah, 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 blah. That's really just about the institution. It's a little bit dry. It's just like sort of, this is what's happening, and more toward people, stories, and impact. And instead of, we're excited to announce, more talking about the experience or piquing curiosity. So let me give you some actual examples of what I'm talking about. So instead of saying, again, we are excited to announce blah, 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 the exhibition will explore themes of identity, blah, 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 to really just try to pique curiosity. And I'm going to point this out on each one of them. Ask yourself, is there any sort of emotion happening in either of these? So the second one, maybe it's not like a super emotional post, but it's piquing curiosity a little bit more than the other one is. What does it mean to be seen? This new show brings together artists from our region who are rethinking how we look at ourselves and each other. So all of a sudden, it just sounds a little more interesting, and you might be like, oh, I'm really interested in that. Going back to your newsletter, again, don't just say sign up for our newsletter, blah, blah, blah. Hey, again, market this thing. Want to peek at behind the scenes? Our monthly email shares stories, staff picks, upcoming events, really hone in on that. I guess FOMO would be the emotion here, and I would constantly ask you that, like, what emotion is this sparking with people? So I want to give you one more example, and then we'll talk about subject lines and a couple other things, and then we'll move into Q&A. I want to give you a real world example of how I changed some email messaging. Now, this was specifically for Giving Tuesday. This past year, I've been working really closely with an artist residency in Wyoming, and for Giving Tuesday and specifically, and this was an alumni email, I went into their constant contact and I looked at the last year email. And again, this is just kind of a broad summary. It doesn't have the actual wording, but it was a well-written email. It was like, it's Giving Tuesday. Please support us. Help us reach our goal of $12,000. I love that they tied it to this amount will fully support one artist residency. So there was like a concrete example of how it would help. And then I thought, it still sounds a little bit institutional. So what I want to do is I want to see, can I spark some nostalgia? Can I create some sort of emotional response to this email? Again, it was specifically to alumni. So again, this is paraphrasing, but I decided, I remembered the director talking about the artist's first experience when they arrive, that usually they're coming from like New York and then they go to rural Wyoming and they're just like, whoa, this is so beautiful. And there's this common experience that they have where they ride their bicycles around the campus and there's this tunnel of trees that they ride through. So I created this very colorful, very descriptive memory that they all have, so remember that time you first rode your bike down Big Red Lane, you remember the dinner conversations, you remember the nights around the fire. I doubled the goal just to see what would happen, and I can tell you what happened in just a minute. And then again, I tied it to a concrete example. And then I tied it back. That's two artists who can ride their bike down Big Red Lane, and have that same experience that you had. So it was a huge shift in messaging, and it did work. Did we hit 24,000? No, not even close. Did we increase giving by 40% with this messaging and other tactics that we did? Yes, we did. So it was a huge improvement. And again, I would keep trying to veer you toward this type of messaging. Same thing with your subject lines. Again, I wouldn't put, we are excited to announce, blah, blah, blah. Again, think about ways that you can pique their interest. I love this last one, messy art, smart kids. Yes, really. Love ChatGPT. So he came up with all of these. But there are so many tools out there like subjectline.com. You can type in your subject line and it will rate it for you and then give you different subject lines or suggestions. I love ChatGPT. Sometimes I take what ChatGPT does and put it into Claude because sometimes it can be a little more dynamic and human sounding. So there's a ton of tools that don't to make it so you don't have to just again stare at a blank screen, and you can ask, is this an effective subject line? Okay, last two things, and then we'll move on to questions. And again, I'll kind of breeze over these, and we can talk more about these in the Q&A. But another question that came up was audience segmentation, and I would say if you're not or you're worried about this, I would start broad. Just create like maybe it's just members and non-members, and then maybe add donors or something like that. There are some organizations that have multiple newsletters that go out to multiple audiences, and my guess is because you're here, you're not ready to do that, and I wouldn't suggest doing that. But you can further segment it down to your opt-ins on your website, members, donors, educators, schools, volunteers, event attendees. The beautiful thing too about these platforms is if you have overlap on these audiences, and you will, they're not going to get two emails. So that's another reason to get rid of the BCC idea. You know what I mean? And you can also, if it's specifically an educator event, then you can leave everyone out and really hone in on that messaging. So it can be really tricky. or if you feel intimidated by that, just start broad and start to narrow it down over time. And the last thing is analytics. And I don't really want to, because this isn't a super thorough presentation. I don't want to go through all of these and exactly what they are and what you should look for. But I would use this more, and we can even send this to you. Maybe we'll send you this or the slide. I guess you'll get a recording. You will get a recording. But I would really, rather than worrying too much about this, I would just look for big changes. Like, for instance, if all of a sudden your unsubscribe rate goes up to 10%, which would be ridiculous, something went wrong, and you're going to want to figure out what that is. So, again, I would focus mostly on just, again, getting the darn emails out, focusing on your messaging, audience segmentation. And I'm not saying this isn't important, but I wouldn't get too bogged down on it unless you notice some major fluctuations in open rates and things like that. And then if you master this, you can get into A/B testing and all sorts of crazy things. But again, my impression is that, again, we're trying to get people just to improve their overall game. And this is kind of next level. So I think that's all I have for slides. If the next one. So now go send it. Hopefully that was helpful and you can feel at least another level. And now it's jumping ahead on me again. Another level of confidence for sending your emails. Before I unshare and we start going into Q&A, or I guess we're going to take our 1-minute intermission. I did want to mention that both Beth and I do free discovery calls. If you ever want to hop on a call just for 30 minutes to pick our brains, see if it's a fit, or even just take 30 minutes of our time to ask a question, we do free discovery calls. And these are our emails, and you'll also receive that by our follow-up email. And then the last thing before I unshare is we hope you join us next month for our next free Museum Minds. It keeps going.
There you go.
It has a mind of its own today. Beth, I'm going to let you talk about this.
Okay, awesome. Well, here's the slide, because you went back one, about next month's Museum Minds. It's all about build, boost, and brag about yourself. Our friend Allie Shell is coming on. She is the museum career coach. A lot of times in the registrations, we have new museum folks that are either trying to break into the field, or they're new to their position or something like that. But also at the same time, we all are here because we're doing professional development in some way. So Allie's putting together a really awesome professional resource guide, and she's got a lot of different things about how we can continue to grow as professionals and how to represent ourselves well in that individuality. So making sure that we're constantly doing professional development and showing it. So she's going to be on next month. If you have a reoccurring Museum Minds on your calendar, you will notice that this one is 1 week later than normal, because we normally do it in the same amount of time every single month. But I'm going to be at a big ACM planning meeting when we would normally have it. So for those of you on program committee, hey, I'll be there with you. But for everybody else, join us the week after on September 17th for the call. Many of you probably won't even notice the difference because we're sending you a reminder email. And that is what email marketing is all about. So mark your calendars, September 17th. You can sign up. I'm going to make sure that I put the link in the chat for you to sign up as well. And then you just will constantly get some emails. All right. The last slide there is my workshop in 2 weeks. I'm doing Wonder Why. It's just the art and science of play and identifying learning in lots of different of the common exhibit areas. So you can sign up for that at inspired'impact.com/Wonder Why. And then, of course, in September, I have Wonder Makers coming back again. Tammy, who's on camera right now, is one of the recent graduates of Wonder Makers. So let's see. We're going to take a minute to sip a drink, and then we're going to go into Q&A, which I've got a couple already.
And I am now on sharing, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Ooh, now I have a big screen of people. Fantastic. Go ahead and put your questions um in the chat if you have them. Awesome. Awesome. All right, are we ready to jump in here?
Do we need a 1 minute or have we already taken our 1 minute?
I think we're running in.
Yeah.
Now our Q&A is about 15 minutes long, so I think we can hop in, right? One of the questions that came up during the call, which you kind of answered already, but I also think that we all can jump in on this one a little bit, was at Bacchus Page House, they were asking, how do we best write newsletters that someone might get because they are on 2 or more email lists? They're a volunteer and a member with us. So the content might be a bit different because between the two, but some of the content will overlap. I don't want to cause newsletter fatigue. And I know that you had talked a little bit about segmentation. Do you want to clarify on that?
I do. And I really would love to hear from the group as well, because I love to talk about what I know, but I'm also here to learn as much as well, because I really get a sense of like what people are doing on the ground. I'm going to use this same artist residency that I worked with as an example. I would say that 90%, and there's no one way of doing this. Again, you really have to kind of decide. But I will say that 90% of their communications went to the all list. And again, they were just rotating through those content pillars, talking about community events, education, different events, openings, open call, blah, blah, blah. And they would just sort of rotate through those. It was only for certain circumstances where, for instance, we wanted to send only a reminder just for community events, because they have a national audience as well, that we only sent something to that organization. Or in fundraising, we may have sent an additional email to only a donor group, but we would send the first email to the whole group. So I hope that answers your question. But again, I think most of the communication is probably going to go to most of the audiences. If there's specific things that you want to say to those audiences, then start to segment. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, sorry, this is Penny. I'm from Bacchus Page House Museum. I'm the education coordinator here. So previously, our executive director was the one sending out most of the emails, and just because of circumstances, I've ended up taking most of them on. And we do use MailChimp. We've got templates set up for the 3 or 4 different emails that go out. And we do them monthly. So I'm kind of surprised to see weekly, because I was thinking monthly was even getting to be overkill, but I kind of like the weekly idea.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of coming up with content, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we have a members one that goes out. We have one that just kind of goes out to everyone, one that goes out specifically to volunteers, and one that's an educator's email or newsletter. So that was my concern was, for instance, we have our Heritage Farm Show coming up at the end of this month. So everybody's getting reminded about that, and we could copy and paste and just, the same stuff, but then somebody might be getting the same thing 2 or 3 times.
And that's okay. And that's okay.
Like, I have thoughts on this, and I heard this just recently from another person who does a lot of marketing, in that if you only send out once a month and they miss 1 month, they haven't heard from you in 2 months. My other thought process,
good point,
right? And another thought process I'm having about what I'm hearing you say is that it's similar content written for 4 or 5 different audiences and all sent at the same time. My thought here is write one email that is relevant to everyone. Then in a week or 2, send another one that is specific to that audience. And that's where you can do that email segmentation. The other thing that I do often, so maybe I have 3 ideas here. They just keep coming. Oh my gosh. One of the things I do often too is I will send to my full list, but like if it's for a workshop that's coming up and I already have people registered, I will dump that list of registrants into my email service provider, and I will exclude them from the main list. So if they've already signed up for the class, they're not going to get another advertisement asking them to sign up again. So a couple different things that you can think about there too is that like maybe you have your main list, but you're excluding the education folks from it because they're getting a different email or, that type of thing. Or you just use that focused content as a second email. Then they get either two, or if they miss the first one, they get one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rainey, your thoughts?
And I think
Perfect. That does help.
Oh,
Thank
I'm
you
so
very
glad.
much.
And I think I just wanted to add that I think my biggest fear for organizations is that they actually get forgotten more than they are bothering people. So again, I just want to set everybody's mind at rest that if you think you're bothering them, you're probably not. And I understand too that you don't want to feel like you're just saying the same thing over and over again, but it's okay to repeat yourself. Maybe you reword it or come at it at a different angle. But again, people need multiple reminders and multiple touch points to actually act. Because again, if you just see this, and even going back to the newspaper days when I was way back when I used to place a lot of print ads, we would never just run one. There was like a schedule, so people would see it multiple times and therefore act on it again after that 3 to 5 times. So
that's so good. That's so good.
Yeah.
Even when I do like email campaigns, which I'm assuming many of you get my email campaigns about my workshops, I usually schedule out at least 4 to 5 emails over the course of like 2 to 3 weeks to a month so that there is that repetition. And then I'm also posting about it on LinkedIn, things like that, so that it's a varied voice, but the messaging comes across multiple times. And again, because it's something that I have that costs money, I lead with value. And I try to give tips and tricks right off the bat so that whether you are reading it because you want to come to the workshop or you're just reading it because, heck, Beth has good stuff, or she's kind of funny, or, this sounds a lot like her. You're still getting something from the email. And it's not always you see my name in your inbox and you say, oh, here comes another sales email. I always try to lead with that value or some sort of tip or trick because I want to level up the entire community, whether you're buying stuff from us or not. Why are we here today? Like, hello.
Well, and I think an equivalent with museums could be, you don't want to give so much of your exhibition away that they won't come because they basically felt like they saw it over email. But you can probably talk about 20% of it and just keep hooking, oh, and did you know this? And did you know this? And there's this really crazy other thing that you didn't know about this exhibition. So I don't think you have to, give away the farm. But again, you don't have to dive in with the ask either, and this could relate to fundraising, but let's just say it's exhibitions. You don't have to just keep reminding them. You can keep just talking with them and piquing their interest and curiosity and, just keep talking to them. Yeah.
We have 2 questions in the chat, and I know that it probably is going to take more than 5 minutes, but okay. So first things first, the first one says, it's kind of a long one, but it's really good. No, it rolled off. With a lot of limitations on time, staff, and funding at a small academic museum, how do you prioritize email communication? Where does this fall against other important museum operations? A key goal of our museum is to grow our visitor numbers and the community's awareness of our presence. So this feels very important, but it hasn't been something we do as frequently as twice or even once a month consistently.
And you're not alone.
Right? And there is, if you're viewing the chat, there's kind of like one suggestion from Emily. Emily, do you want to come on and give us your suggestion? Look, I see your smiling face. You're ready for it.
Okay. My suggestion for that is, and this is just because I know if I don't schedule time for things, then I won't get to it, is time blocking out once a month, just creating all the content that I want, and then planning that and scheduling it and then not having to think about it.
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk about this in December, by the way. We're talking about time management and time blogging
Yep.
in
That
December.
was
So thank
exactly
you,
one
Emily.
of the things I was going to say too, is about batching it and like take a half a day or take, a certain chunk of time and say, I'm going to write all 3 newsletters and get them pre-scheduled and, get them formatted and pre-scheduled to send out. And then boom, on a random Tuesday morning, here is an email in your own inbox that you wrote and sent and batched a month ago. Like, how amazing is that? Sorry if I went a little glitchy there. But you know what I mean? That's what I do a lot of times too, is especially in my email campaigns that are 4 and 5 emails long. I just vary the length of them. I make sure that there's really good content in them, but I schedule them all literally on the same day because I chunk out the time and I batch it. So I think that that's a good opportunity. And also, you can take one topic and look at it from 6 different lenses, and that makes it a little bit easier to write the content.
Agree.
All right. Another one. Oh my gosh, and I love that Michelle's note taker is giving us the takeaways from the meeting. One of the questions is, and this is a social media kind of thing for you, Rainey. Should the museum have a LinkedIn page? I don't know how important it is for outreach or a new audience. I also don't know what type of voice to use on this platform. Ooh, somebody, a couple responses.
Oh yeah, let's hear
Michael
those, and
says,
then I'll tell
I
you my
say
take.
yes. I look after one museum I volunteer for, and it allows me to reach a larger audience. Emily, again, with great suggestions, says LinkedIn Voice is definitely something I'd love to learn more about in the museum world. And Melody, again, industry leader voice here. I'll say for me, it's helpful so that I can tag them and bring awareness. That's where so many potential supporters and donors are. I agree, 100%. I love to be able to tag someone directly, especially if I'm posting content from their museum with really good like kudos and oh my gosh, look at the amazing work that this museum is doing with educational play and all these things. I like to directly link them so they see the kudos, but also so that the people who are reading my posts can become an audience of that museum.
Do you want to hear my answer?
Of course we do.
Again, this always has to do with capacity. Do you have time to, because this is the other question that always comes up with social media. What platform should I be on? Should I be on all of them? Do I need to post different content on the different platforms? So I would say at minimum be on Instagram and Facebook. You've got an older demographic, younger demographic. If you want to go younger, get on TikTok. If you want to go sort of the more professional route, also go on LinkedIn. But there are things that you can do, like using, there's a software called Metricool, for instance. You can post the same thing on all sorts of platforms. And that's not uncommon. It might feel weird, like, well, shouldn't I be saying something different on those platforms? If you have time, that's great. But again, it's okay if there's an overlap, and a lot of organizations do it. So I say, if you can do it, yeah, get on LinkedIn. And again, these software like Metricool, they're mostly free, honestly, and you could just schedule the same posts, and they, fortunately, most of them use the same like dimensions on photos and things like that. But if you were to look at, like, and I don't know why I always bring up this example, Wendy's, the chain Wendy's, if you look at their Facebook and their Instagram, they are clearly marketing to different audiences with different messaging on those platforms, and it's actually really hilarious. But they also probably have a marketing team of about 35 people. So again, I would just start with like same content on as many platforms as you can get. Twitter, I don't think is the best because it's just characters, you know what I mean? Like, I think museums really want to visually show off things a little bit more than social, those types of platforms. But if you can make it onto LinkedIn, I say go for it. Get on LinkedIn. Again, if you have the capacity to do it.
Awesome. Here's a question that was in the chat that's kind of circling back to our original content. With no other questions on there. Ashley, do you want to get on? Oh, somebody just put something on there.
Oh,
Ashley,
I saw this question
do you
actually.
want to get on and ask your question, or do you want me to do it?
Oh, sure. It's kind of noisy in my office right now, but you can
Okay.
go ahead.
So give us your question, Ashley. Tell everybody where you're from and what your question was in the chat. Oh, or maybe she was saying I
She
should do it.
wants you to do it.
Oh, okay, good. So Ashley is here and she was asking, are there better days than others to send emails or post on socials? Bacchus Page, I think that was Penny. I think I remember her name. We schedule them according to when the platform suggests. MailChimp actually gives you the day and time that the email would most likely be opened. What great advice, and probably some really great AI metrics going into that, something like that.
Yeah. In general, though, don't send at 8 a.m. Monday morning. Let people get into the office. I've seen a lot of talk about sending it either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, either mid morning or late afternoon, times when people, are kind of, they've gotten to the office, they've settled in. Now they can read your email. I was actually asking ChatGPT, like, what are some other ways that organizations have thought about this? And it gave me an example about Denver Art Museum testing out an 8 p.m. and a 6:30 a.m. that they actually works. So you can kind of play around with it on your own and see if like something magically works. But for the most part, again, not Monday morning at 8, not Friday at 4.
Surprisingly, though, Cassie,
Oh, Friday afternoons are great because people are coasting into the weekend. See if that's.
Oh, look at you! You can see the chat now.
See what? Yeah. Well, now I can because I'm not screen sharing. Test it. See what happens.
Yeah,
That's what
give
I
it a
say.
try. See what
Yeah.
happens. That's for sure.
Well, thank you. Sorry, could you repeat what you were saying about how that one platform gives you suggestions about when to send it?
That was on someone else's comment, and I think they had talked about MailChimp giving suggestions.
That was mine.
Okay, good. Penny.
Yeah, sorry, on
times.
MailChimp, once we're ready to send the newsletter, you hit schedule and you can either send now or schedule the newsletter. And usually when I hit schedule, it gives you the option of MailChimp basically assessing the best time it would to open it or that it would be opened. And that's usually what I choose. And it ends up being something like the next day at 9 p.m. or something like that. Now, if it's something that's time sensitive to a specific event, I might hit share now or send now. Or I might send it the following week. But certainly this webinar has really helped me out because now I'm looking at creating content for the entire month on one fell swoop and just schedule everything. And yeah, this has been phenomenal. So thank you very much, ladies.
Oh, thank you. Yay. We love hearing that.
Awesome. Well, that's what we do this for. Like, you made our day. That was fantastic.
That made my
All
day.
right. Well, we are at time and we would love to chat more and more and more about all of this, but we don't want to take away your time either. And we want to be very thoughtful and mindful about that. So we are honored that you spent the last hour with us. And it has been so much fun working with all of you on Museum Minds and hearing all the good feedback. Remember, next month is all about being awesome in your own professional development and learning how to brag about yourself without sounding super boastful or anything like that. But let's make sure that we come back next month, 1 week later, same place, same time. We'll see you there. Thanks so much. And
Thanks,
Rainey,
everyone.
you're a freaking rock star. Woohoo! Love the content today.
Thank you. Great seeing everyone.